So if your foundation is strong, then you can apply the information you receive. Even if it's miseducation, it's still information. It's how you take it in. Being in this class, learning how to publicly speak properly, you'll be able to relate and give information when you have to get in front of people to present an idea, regardless of what capacity you choose to go in reference to your careers. Does that make sense? And if you're able to critically think with the foundation of knowledge itself, whatever your culture is, whatever your ethnicity is, you represent that. Make sense? Make sense? Now I know you sleep, so I'm gonna help you a little bit. Now in some of my other workshops, when I did the quiz in reference to Black people and African, some of the children asked me, well, Mr. Gregg, what do you categorize yourself as? Any of you thought of that? No? Or you just like, look, I'm tired, man. It's okay. My answer to them was, I said an Americanized African. An Americanized African. Anyone want to take a stab at the reason I would say that? Yes, sir.
Because you've been here, like you've lived here your whole life, and like your culture, like you have half of what your family has, and then you have like the American part of the culture. So you can like be basically both. You're not just one or the other.
Everyone, what's your name?
One.
Everyone heard Juan? Does that make sense? Born and raised here, so I'm Americanized. Ethnicity, African. I don't know which particular country is my people enslaved. 54 countries in Africa, because some people speak on it as if it's a country. It's a continent, and I said it that way on purpose. It's so large that you can fit 3 United States in it and still have land left over. And from the look of some of your faces, you didn't know that. Needs to be understood. Americanized African. There's another reason why I presented it that way. In another workshop, there was a gentleman from Jamaica, and others from the Caribbean. How many of you have heard of the word diaspora? Raise your hand, please. Yes, sir. Would you tell the class what diaspora is?
I don't really know like the exact word definition, but I know like the general premise.
That's fine.
Means like you're a citizen or you're a national of another country living somewhere else, I believe.
Love it. Did you, what's your name?
Drew.
Drew. Drew?
Yeah.
Yes. Did you all hear what Drew said? Did you understand what Drew said? Americanized African. The Jamaican gentleman, he would be a Jamaicanized African. My brother John is people from Liberia, yes? Which is in the continent of Africa. African. I can go on and on. What's my point? Critical thinking. Here's the example I gave to a previous group. So I'm gonna give it to you, and then I'm gonna conclude with we're gonna do our discussion and applying what we just learned today. What I said to them was, they're like, what's the relevance? Then I asked them about diaspora, which only a couple knew what it meant. In America, African Americans are considered what? Minorities, yes? Because we think geographically, but the world is one, yes? So by me saying Americanized African, my brother John, Liberian, the gentleman in my previous workshop from Jamaica, Jamaicanized African, what did I just do? I connected this, right? So instead of thinking regionally, I think globally, because that's the world. So when you do that, then you realize you're not the minority. Actually, Africans are the majority. What's my point? The mind is very powerful. What you think is how you enact. And you probably heard different saying versions of that, right? Take the head, the body will follow, yes? So remember I told you, I speak in front of and do workshops in front of African American and Latino children, and it's about empowerment, yes? So if you think you're a minority, then you will act like what? Small, a minority. If you don't know your foundation, if you don't know your education, if you don't know as an African that you're descendants of kings and queens, you're the mothers and fathers of civilization, and everything came from out of you, then you won't act that way. Correct? My rhyme. It was from an original song my group did called Do For Self. At that time, we had labels looking at us, but they wanted us to not talk about being educated, about college. They wanted us to talk about being gangsters. None of us grew up in that element, so back in the 80s, 90s, with hip hop, it was about being real, keeping it real. That was the phrase, keeping it real. Because back then, when you stood up in front of someone and did a rhyme, there were people in the audience studying you. And when you were done, people were coming to challenge you based upon what you said. So that song came from, we're gonna do for self, we're gonna do our own label. And my particular verse, I wanted to speak about what I was hearing on the radio stations, which was derogatory. I'm sick of all the spit that's going around because the rap is positive, no radio sound. They wanted us to be gangsters. I guess I gotta get blended to make a brother drop, call the queens bitches or hoes to get some props. You with me? Do for self. Yo. I lead the way because we're educated. We would not only do concerts, but we would go in front of classes and we would do peace protests and poetry. So we would educate brown and Latino children. Do for self, yo, as I lead the way. Sick and tired of having the others saying yay or nay. Those in the industry. See, I'm critically putting them together. Push the play. But all of a sudden, weeding and seeding, meaning weed, you know when you weed a garden, you take the weeds out so that it can grow, yes? Weeding and seeding and bringing the masses out of the rut. Con, if you dare. Con, if you dare. Dition to be fair. Condition. Raising them perpendicular. My math majors. Perpendicular. Up, right on the square, getting into the science because we were politically conscious. You with me? Up right on the square. In case you want to know from whence I flow, now I'm talking about me. Address me the Lord, warlord, the Lord, mighty Leo, zodiac sign. My meditation state I use is ancestral African. Flow, you know, is also professional. You with me? Make sense? Critical thinking. You can apply to all the things that you're into. Make sense? I'm gonna finish with the census thing real quick, so I'm gonna show you what I meant by that. So by bringing that up in the class and connecting the diaspora, Africans, yes? Then I said the census. This is how I made it relevant to them. How many of you know about the census? Oh, babies. Census. What's the census? Anyone? One.
Like the 5 census?
No.
Like, or like the,
Good question.
Yeah, or
The census, every 10 years. The
Yeah,
census.
like-
The
yeah.
census. Maybe I'm not saying it right. Drew.
Like the counting of the population.
Counting of the population. Yes? Okay. Everyone's familiar with that. Yes? And we're at it now. They're about to do it again, correct? What's the importance of the census and counting of the population? Anyone?
you see how many people are in the U.S.?
How many people are in the U.S.?
Don't they have like different categories, like what like ethnicity you are?
Yes. different categories of people and who you are. Yes, Drew.
So resources can be allocated correctly?
Yes, yes. Yes, resources can be allocated. Y'all still not feeling that, right? Okay. Resources can be allocated. There's millions and billions of dollars being allocated based upon the numbers of the people. Yes? No?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So, from the quiz that I gave you, for the box, as Juan said, there's different boxes that we check, right? White, black, Asian, and so on. Other, yes? Have you done the census before? Or are you too young to have done the census? Let me ask that question first. So you know what I mean, there's the boxes, yes? You don't know what I mean? Okay, with the census, how they count the population, they have boxes on the forms. So you can check if you're white, you check if you're black, or they say African American. They'll check if you're Indian, Asian, Hispanic. You with me? Or other. Okay, so for white, how many countries are those who represent the countries that I've named earlier, like Italian, Polish? Would it be safe to say that those multiple countries can, descendants of those from those multiple countries can check white? Make sense? You with me? Okay. For Asian, how many countries, just name some countries. No, let me do it this way. Wouldn't it be safe to say that there'd be multiple countries, or those who are descendants from the countries that the people consider themselves Asian, they can check Asian, right? Right? Same with Hispanic, right? There'll be multiple countries, yes? You with me? Okay, but for African American, how many countries will be represented? For African American, how many countries will be represented? Would we say, could there be multiple countries?
Yeah.
Name them. African American. Critically thinking. Okay, I'm going to really do a cartwheel. Hold on. African American. How many countries? Let's go back to the quiz. Where do black people come from? You said Africa, but I said Africans come from Africa. Then we talked about African American, right? In this country, on the box where it is, give you the choice of African American, how many people or how many countries, descendants of those countries could check African American? Yes, sir.
So 54 countries in Africa, correct?
Thank you for remembering that. But they're not American, that's African.
Obviously, I don't understand the question.
Exactly. That's my point. Mom's is from Panama. She's lived here in this country for a long time. What box would she check?
Hispanic, yeah.
Because she looks like sis. Forgive me for touching. She looks like sis. Could she check black? No, because you're saying no. Because she was born in Panama. John is Liberian. What box would John check? First form of education is knowledge of self. What box would John check? Other. He could. My mom could check other. What box could I check? Dad's African American, mom's from Panama. What box could I check?
Hispanic and both.
You can only check one. First form of education is knowledge of self, critical thinking. I can check other. I can check Hispanic. I can check African American. What box will John check?
For me, according to you, like, I'll have to check out. I would check out.
Say it louder, please.
For me, based on my culture, I would have to hit the African American.
You would check that, but what else could you check? Other. What did I just do? I divided, which then made the pool smaller. Drew said correctly, it's the counting of the population and allocation of money. The money goes where the population is. Critical thinking. The money goes where the population is. In 2000, the Latino population count surpassed the African American count, so the Latino population became the first minority based upon how the census was set up. You with me? At that time, then you start seeing, in reference to what Drew has said, the allocation of money. So now that you not only see information disseminated in English, but you also see it in Spanish. But if we critically think, and we understood what I just laid out for you, then you would understand that the African is the majority. So then when it comes to redistricting, because with the population goes your representatives, yes? For representatives, you go to the Congress, yes? You with me? Critical thinking. This is the country. We all say we're Americans, but yet we don't seem to understand. Or you're asleep and don't realize what I'm saying to you. I'm talking this way just to get an effect from you. Okay, you're smiling, that's good. You see where I'm at? Foundation. Solid. Critically thinking. You are our leaders. You can take this information, so where you go out, you're able to apply it regardless of your ethnicity. Yes? You're able to, let me do it this way, forget my back. Formulate your questions. Who, what, where, and how. These are the ways you should form your questions, because they give definite answers. We don't use why, because why is like a dog chasing its tail in a circle. You seen that before? For any answer, someone can always say why. It keeps you going in a circle. First format, education, knowledge of self. I gave you an example of how to apply it with using the census. Yes? People are saying we're in a very divisive time in our country. Oh, I write like my brother. What's that word? Let's utilize what we've learned, the 9 major people activities, and let's briefly talk about racism, right? I'm gonna lead you. So we can say racism, as people were saying today, is in essence what is causing the divisiveness in this country, right? Racism based upon bigotry, bigoted words, right? Can anyone give me a functional definition of what racism is, so that you understand how I'm applying it? Because when someone's in front of you speaking and they're using terms, they should define what they're saying so that you understand how they're applying it, so you don't assume you know what they're speaking of. Does that make sense? So functionally, anyone tell me about racism. What is racism to you? What you've heard? What have you learned it to be? Say that louder, please.
Someone who can't appreciate someone who's different from themselves.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Racism is just subdivided to discriminate against the rich and the poor.
Say it louder, John.
Racism is a set divided to discriminate against the rich and the poor and the wealthy and people of color.
Have you heard, did you hear what John said? No? Yes?
I heard it.
Okay. Anyone else?
From what you said, someone can accept someone
Who's different?
yeah.
Would it be safe to say discrimination based upon race? Or what a person looks like?
Yes.
Okay. Racism, I like what you provided, thank you. It's systemic. Have you heard that before? Systemic racism. Systemic in a sense, system. Make sense? Based upon, I'm gonna use your definitions. Those who are different. Racism is a value system. The value system which created the system. Yes, you with me? The system that affects all of these things. Going to war with people who don't look like you. Yes? Sex. Women's right to control her body. Honey, what her example was, the LGBTQ, forgive me if I got it wrong. You follow me? You with me? Every day, we can go with religion, Crusades, Catholic, Protestant, Jew, yes? Politics, most definitely. Law, which now has affected our law, right? Roe v. Wade, you with me? Labor, union versus non-union, minimum wage, should it be raised to $15? Livable wages, you with me? Education, we spoke about that. Resources, some communities have them, some don't. But we expect those who don't have it to still be educated, when all of us have not even been taught the first form of education. We've been miseducated, you with me? Economics, now we're dealing with the money, census. The way that it's been designed to how you pick and choose is because we're not educated, we don't critically think. We don't understand what's going on, so we can't challenge them effectively to change it to where people are properly allocated, the numbers are properly counted, so we can properly disseminate or distribute the monies for everyone to be properly taken care of. That makes sense? Entertainment, and what we hear on popular entertainment are not systematic, that's not the word I want to use, not conducive to the upliftment of people, because music should make you feel good. It should not just make you feel good, but enrich you. But the popular music that we hear on terrestrial radio, meaning the AM, FM, that most people have access to, degrading, right? Be it within your own group or other groups. The popular TV shows, the comedy shows, a lot of them are degrading, disrespectful, yes? Based upon race and others. Make sense? Critically thinking. So my purpose here today was to plant seeds to have you to critically think. Because I don't want you to be like those children that I was in front of. When information is given to you, you don't know how to properly apply it. So when you're asked a question and it's right there, or in your class, when your instructor asks you about your outlines, and you've been here 3 weeks, and you still don't know. Make sense? Are you sure? Are you positive? And you saw how that was capsulized in my rhyme at the beginning. Addressing a situation in reference to us being signed as a group to a major label, but being asked to compromise our values. And you saw, as I broke it down, piece by piece, how I addressed each aspect of what we were being presented with. To critically think and being able to apply it properly. And that's my goal for you guys. Anything that is presented to you, to be able to take it in and to critically think, utilizing the 4 questions, the way to formulate your 4 questions, thinking about how even if you don't think about these things, these affect you every day. And you don't have to be a scholar like myself and an instructor to get into the sciences of the inequities of our antiquity, of our people, in a sense for us African or your other cultures, but know enough that you are descendants of somebody, of some place, what makes you unique, and so you can manifest your uniqueness. And then what you'll do is what I'm doing, which is paying it forward, and when you're in an opportunity to speak to someone, be it one-on-one or in front of people, you can present and then spark them so that they become educated, and then their uniqueness can come out, and you can then they can then teach also, like what you'll be able to do. Make sense? Any comments, questions? Thank you for your time.